In this video, I'm going to talk about whether or not creatine is effective in helping you build muscle. I mentioned creatine already in a video where I talked about supplements in general and how to judge their effectiveness. And what I basically said was, if it stood the test of time, if people are still using it, people are still buying it, and means people are still selling it, then it's got to be worth something. And creatine sure as hell has stood the test of time. It's been around for years. Even people that barely use any supplements whatsoever, they still probably use some kind of a protein powder, and number 2 supplement is going to be creatine. So it's obviously working for a lot of people. Me personally, I've known about creatine for years. I remember when it first came out, and the way creatine was used back then was to gain a lot of lean size. I'm not going to call it muscle, but lean size or lean mass. The idea was, if you did something called a loading phase, that means you loaded all of your muscles in your body with creatine. It was like 20 grams of creatine a day for like 5 days. And the idea was the creatine went into all of your muscles. Yeah, that's why it took so much of it for the loading phase. Then they would go ahead and attract water, so your muscles would puff up. Not like water weight, but it was basically water weight, but it was inside of the muscle, not just under the skin. So it was like a water weight, but you still looked really lean. And that's what a lot of people used it for. You would do that for like, I don't know, 5 days, whatever, take 20 grams a day, and then you do like a maintenance dose of 5 grams a day. And, you know, that would just keep the level up. I was never really a big fan of that, though, because, you know, that was not like a lasting result, okay? It wasn't that you actually built up, you know, muscle. It was basically just that it went into your muscles, puffed everything up. If you stopped, because they were talking about how you had to cycle on and off, you know, which you don't anymore, but if you went off of cycling, basically you would urinate a couple times, all the creatine would be flushed out of your system, you would be just the same way that you were. So like, yeah, you could gain like, you know, 10 pounds of muscle almost overnight, or 10 pounds of lean mass almost overnight, but it wasn't muscle. And like I said, as soon as you went off creatine, it went away. So I was not a very big fan of creatine, and didn't use it for a long time. But then there was one time when I was like, okay, I'm going to start experimenting with supplements again. And you know, I started exercising pretty hard. And it's when I really started doing like just purely anaerobic conditioning, okay? Instead of going out for like a jog or a run, I would do sprints, okay? And that's when creatine really opened, like my eyes were really opened up to creatine, because I started taking creatine, and it's not the placebo effect, because it wasn't like, okay, let's see what's going to happen, you know, when I use creatine, and I was looking forward to certain results or anything. I started taking 5 grams of creatine a day, okay, and you know, like I said, I didn't do the loading phase. I just started taking 5 grams of creatine a day, and I kind of forgot about it. I thought if anything, I'd get stronger in the gym. Back then, I used to do like weighted dips and weighted pull-ups. And what happened is, like 2 or 3 days after I started it, I realized that the sprints I was doing, I would sprint 100 meters, walk back 100 meters, and then sprint out again, walk back, do that 10 times. And I realized that I had massive, massive energy. You know, it wasn't like just like an endurance kind of thing. It was just like I exploded faster. I was able to, you know, to push harder, you know, for the short sprint that I was on. And like I said, it wasn't the placebo effect, because it wasn't like, yay, creatine's working. It was just like, I was like, what the hell's going on? There's no way I've gotten in, you know, better shape or stronger or improved my technique or anything at this time. It's like, it's just easier. I just feel powerful all of a sudden. So I had to reverse engineer. I'm like, what the hell have I been doing lately? And I realized a few days before I had started taking creatine. And that now I'm sold on creatine. That's really the reason why I use it. Loading phase, I don't think anybody does that anymore, because like I said, all that really did was add some water weight. Basically, all you have to do is just take 5 grams a day, and after a few days, when it's in your body, you're going to realize that your anaerobic, your short burst energy is just increased. Now, what's this worth? First of all, if that's what you're doing, okay? It makes your training just a lot better. I mean, I just feel a lot better. These days, I'm not doing sprints right now, but I'm doing, like, for instance, I started taking it recently. I went from the steak and eggs diet, where I didn't take any supplements, and then I went into my anaerobics diet, where I take 5 grams of creatine a day in my post-workout drink. And a couple of days later, when I was doing those explosive plyometric push-ups, I wasn't just like pushing myself up like this sucks and, you know, whatever. I was pushing myself. I was like, boom, like air time, clapping my chest, you know, or boom, getting some air time, landing with my hands together, boom, getting some air time, you know, landing with my hands apart. It's just incredible. I could tell the difference in my explosiveness. You know, I mean, I was still obviously tired during my interval, but those 10 reps I was doing was like boom, 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 boom. You know, and then after that, you know, recover, and then boom, boom. And that's really the difference that creatine makes. So like I said, I don't really use it like with a loading phase and everything. Nobody does anymore. It's just to pump my muscles up with water. I'm not going to say that it necessarily builds muscle, but it makes you explode, whether you're doing a sprint or plyometrics, you know, maybe certain kinds of like powerful weightlifting, like Olympic lifting or whatever. It helps with that, okay? And because you're able to, in my case, you know, explode more on your plyometrics, explode more on your burpees or whatever, you're working out harder, and because of that indirect effect, you're actually building muscle. So like I said, creatine doesn't necessarily directly build muscle, but it helps you do explosive anaerobic movements better, and because of that, you're training harder, which is going to give you more of a result. So that's how it actually helps you build muscle. Like I said, do not do a loading phase. Just take 5 grams a day, regardless of your weight, okay? Take 5 grams a day. It doesn't really matter when you take it, because it's not like, you know, like caffeine, where you take a caffeine pill and right after you feel it and then the effects go away. You know, creatine, you need to take it and it needs to go into your body, and then a couple of days later you start feeling it. It's not like an immediate effect. So it really doesn't matter when you take it. Personally, I take it in my post-workout drink, okay? The reason why I take it then is because, you know, you have to take it at a certain time of day so you don't forget it, and, you know, it's as good a time as any. And I personally still believe that if you deplete your body, like with really hard interval training, you know, really hard, you know, anaerobic exercise, and your body's depleted, that it just soaks everything up like a sponge. So that's when I go ahead and take my creatine. You know, I'm not saying that you have to take it then, but, you know, that's when I take it. Take it on your rest days, okay? Right now, for instance, I'm trying to cut, so on my rest days, I don't take my post-workout beverage, you know, with like the dextrose and everything in it. I just take it at night when I take my casein. So Saturday, Sunday, when I take my casein protein before I go to bed at night, I'll just throw in 5 grams of creatine also. So take it every day, because like I said, you do need to build up and maintain, you know, the creatine in your body. Another thing, in addition to the loading phase, another thing that came out was creatine was supposedly more effective if you took it when your body was going through an insulin spike. That meant sugar, your body reacts to the sugar by jacking up your insulin, and you know, that meant you could absorb the creatine better. I'm not saying you have to do it, and I'm certainly not saying that if you are on a low carbohydrate diet, you should start taking simple sugars. But if you are going to take simple sugars anyway, I mean, I don't care if you have a glass of orange juice in the morning with your breakfast, or like with me, I take like, you know, 75 grams of dextrose, which is a simple sugar, in my protein beverage that I take after I work out. You know, I'm taking this insulin spiking sugar anyway, so I might as well go ahead and, you know, use my creatine at that time. Like I said, it's something you might want to do. I'm not saying you have to do it. But like I said, that's that. If you are going to do something like sprinting, plyometrics, anaerobic intervals, my anaerobics training, then I definitely recommend that you try 5 grams of creatine a day for a few days and see if you don't notice a difference in your explosiveness and your power.